Good morning, YouTube, BookTube. This is Johnny. Time to make a video. It's been 4 or 5 days, and time keeps going by. Another day of prayer. It is March the 12th here in West Michigan. It is 9:59 in the morning. There's snow on the ground. It's supposed to snow 2 to 3 inches tomorrow here. We live along the Lake Michigan, so we get the lake effect snow. And then we're supposed to be in the 50s and 60s next week. So spring is, things are warming up. The birds are active. And so it's been a while since I made a video, and I thought what I would do is just show you what I've been reading in the mornings. Nothing. I'm filming this in the dining room in our house and not down the lower level. And I have stacks of thrift store books, and also I went to Blue Stocking Bookshop here in Holland, bought some used books on in-store credit, and went to local thrift stores, the library, used bookstore, the Book Nook, yesterday at the Book Nook, which was Friday, I picked this book up at the Book Nook. I got some other books, but I've been reading this one. It's called The Man Who Loved Books Too Much: The True Story of a Thief, a Detective, and a World of Literary Obsession, by Alison Hoover Barnett. So I've been reading this. It says here in the back, an unrepentant book thief, Guigo, has stolen a fortune in rare books from around the country. Yet unlike most thieves who steal for profit, Guigo steals for love, the love of books. Perhaps equally obsessive is Ken Sanders, the chief appointed bibliothek, or like a book detective, driven to catch him, following this eccentric cat and mouse chase with a mixture of suspense, insight, and humor. Alison Hoover Barnett plunges the reader deep into a rich world of fanatical book lust and considers what it is that makes some people willing to stop at nothing to possess the titles they love. So people out there in BookTube, you like books about books and book dealers and book collectors and even people who have steal books. It's a very interesting book. I've read almost half of it. So I read this yesterday and read it last night. I also got this book in the mail yesterday. It's called British Empire, Resistance, Repression, and Revolt by Richard Gott. I've been buying books lately from a publisher who publishes mostly political books, maybe leftists, but they publish other books. But this one really interests me. They're called Verso Publishers. They're stationed in London and New York, and they published this book called British Empire, Britain's Empire, Resistance and Repression and Revolt by Richard Gott. As you all know, I'm interested in British history, history of the British Empire, and so I got this in the mail. Says in the back, as the call for a new understanding of our national history grows louder, Britain's empire turns the received imperial story on its head. Richard Gott recounts the long overlooked narrative of resistors, revolutionaries, and revolters who stood up to the might of the empire. In a story of almost continuous colonial violence, Britain's crimes unspool from the beginning of the 18th century to the Indian Mutiny spanning the globe from Ireland to Australia, capturing events from the perspective of the colonized, got unearths all but forgotten stories excluded from the mainstream histories. So, excuse me. So I got this in the mail yesterday. I've been buying books from them the last couple of months. You get sale, they send you an email and you buy this book and you get a certain percentage off. Oh, I'm drinking coffee. I cough a lot when I'm really tired, and I'm really tired because I've not been getting sleep to my sciatica has been bothering me. I have been going to physical therapy for the last 2 weeks. I got 2 more. Let me see, I got next week, and I think I have another week. I think it's 6 weeks. So I think I've gone to 4. No, at least 3 sessions. Because there are only 6 sessions at the physical therapy that the insurance covers. So anyway, slowly through prayer and physical therapy, maybe this sciatica will be cured. Still reading Rudolph of Saxony in the mornings, The Life of Jesus Christ, Part 2, Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 57. I'm on chapter, this morning, I'm on chapter, what chapter am I on? I just lost it. Oh. Page 620, where's 620? I'm on chapter 42. Prayerful expectation of the Lord's return, final signs. Matthew 24, verse 29, Mark 13, 24 to 25, Luke 18, 1 through 8, Luke 21, 25 through 31. So I was reading that this morning. I'm trying to finish this volume because as I keep repeating myself that the final volume comes out at the end of this month of this 4-volume work, a translation by Milton T. Walsh. And this is a very famous spiritual classic. As I mentioned when I've been reading The Life of Saint Teresa, a biography by Carlos Ayer. She read The Life of Jesus Christ. It was in all the monasteries and convent libraries. One could find a copy of this, and they read it for devotions and for meditation. So, and I have been reading this week. The Life of the Via is in her volume 3 of her collected works, her life. This is a biography on her life, as I mentioned in past videos. In reading this, she mentions Saint Teresa of Avila. When she was a young girl, she would visit her uncle, and he had devotional books, and he let her read a certain writer, Spanish mystic at that time, who had written a book called The Third Spiritual Alphabet. And I've known for years that in the classics of Western spirituality, which I've been reading this one in the classics of Western spirituality, Jonathan Edwards' spiritual writings. I've just been showing you this one, that they had published a translation of the Third Spiritual Alphabet, and I've got it in the mail this week, and I've been reading it since Monday. So I got this in the mail. This is by Francisco de Osuna. He lived from 1492 to 1540. Francisco de Osuna, The Third Spiritual Alphabet, translated and introduced by Mary E. Giles, prefaced by Karen Kaganoff, Francisco de Osuna, 1492 to 1540, was born in Seville, region of Spain, on the eve of that country's golden age of mysticism that saw the sublime achievements of Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross. Osuna entered the order of friars minor of the regular observance when Cardinal Gimnaz de Circios was spearheading a reform movement that encouraged believers to nourish a simple, Christ-centered inner spirituality. Anyway, she was heavily influenced by this book, St. Teresa of Avila, and I've known about it for years. This first came out in 1981, and I finally bought it since I've thought about it for years, and so I've been reading pretty steadily. I've read almost 200 pages, and it has 610 pages in it. Really enjoying it. Well, the word enjoyment is not the proper word. It's a good book to read and to meditate on, but as I always say, read the Bible above everything. I've been a Christian going on 52 years, and I read the Bible, and I know the Bible, and every Christian writer, Catholic, Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, they all must be read with the light in the light of Scripture. But I do recommend this, but I also recommend that you read like Jonathan Edwards' spiritual writings. You know, read these together along with the Bible. I'm really enjoying this one, and going to the classics of Western spirituality and Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross. I also have been reading this book in context, Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross and the World by Mark O'Keefe. And I always keep this, I'm showing you books that I keep in my main study by my desk all the time. I don't take them down to the lower level. I don't take them in the living room. I keep them in my study. I keep my secular books that I'm reading out here in the living room on my table by my recliner. But the Christian books that I read, I keep in my main study, which you've seen in past videos. That I always keep this copy of St. John of the Cross. I told you the story how I acquired this one. And I was reading The Dark Knight until a couple weeks ago, and then I got sidetracked. And I showed you this book as a good book to have when you're reading the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross. Fire Within, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint John of the Cross, and the Gospel on Prayer, Fire Within by Thomas de Bray. But these are the classics of Western spirituality that I keep in my study, that are my favorites, and I've shown you these, but I have new subscribers. This is one of I read this one every year, or try to. The Carthusian Spirituality, the writings of Hugh of Balma and Gail Dupont. As I told you, this is the copy I take around with me and I carry, and I reinforced it because I read it all the time. But then I have a hardback copy that I keep in my study that I don't carry around with me in my saddlebag. But this is one of my favorite books, along with St. John of the Cross. So, yeah, I really recommend the Carthusian Spirituality. There's 2 treatises in here. and I've read them. I don't know. This was published in 1997. But I must have gotten it sooner than that. Let me see. I thought I bought these when I was in Houston, Texas, but maybe I was wrong. This was published in, it says 97, huh? I thought I got it in the 80s. But anyway, I highly recommend the Carthusian. There's 2 treatises in here. One is by, called Hugh of Balma, The Roads to Zion Morn, and then Gail, Dupont on Contemplation. I recommend these. So then my other favorite one is John Ruusbroec, The Spiritual Espousals and Other Works, and the Classics of Western Spirituality. I try to read this every couple of years. You can see I have markers in it. It's one of my all-time favorites. He's one of the Rhineland mystics along with Miser Eckhart. So I really like this one. This is a translation too by James A. Wiseman, preface by Louis Dubré. And then another one, I got this one just last year, and it's become one of my favorites, Late Medieval Mysticism of the Low Country, the Classics of Western Spirituality. This is a new one. I was kind of curious about it last year, and I was reading something, and it was in a footnote. This came in 2008. Yeah, he was the late medieval mysticism was influenced by Ruusbroec. That's why I got it in the Low Country. That's why I got this one. This is one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it. And then there's a one that, this goes along with The Imitation of Christ by Thomas à Kempis. This is Devotio Moderna, basic writings. This is more like says here one written testimony of this modern devotion, The Imitation of Christ, was to prove the most significant influential devotional book in the history of Western spirituality. Yet apart from the Imitation of Christ itself, the spiritual works that taught this new devotion have rarely been translated. So yeah, there was this whole devotional movement, this spiritual movement back in, I don't know, back in a time, I think it was like the 16th or 15th century, and these are these writings. Anyway, you can check this one out. It's I don't read this one this often, but I do keep it in my study. So those are the classics of Western spirituality that I really like, and I told you I got a new one in the mail. So the Third Spiritual Alphabet, and I've been reading John Edwards' spiritual writings, and so yeah, I really recommend these if you're into Christian spirituality. And one thing I like about these is the introductions. They're done by scholars, and they're very good. If you're into church history, or you're into history of the development of Christian mysticism or spirituality, the introductions to these volumes are just worth buying. Because as I've mentioned in past videos, a lot of these writings and the classics of Western spirituality have not been translated into English. You can get them in Spanish, you can get them into Dutch, you can get them into German, but most of these writings have not been translated into English. And so this is like first time. But the introductions by these scholars are just really interesting. I reread them all the time, and I really enjoy reading the introductions to the writings of these spiritual people, these Christians. But as I mentioned, the Carthusian spirituality is one of my all-time favorites. That's why I got 2 copies, and I got multiple copies of the collected works of St. John of the Cross. And this is a good book to get background when you're reading St. Teresa of Avila. I have her 3 volumes of her collected works down the lower level. This is the first volume, which has her life, the Via. And so that's what I keep in my main study for devotions in the mornings. I also have been reading Beeke and Smalley's 3rd volume on Reformed Systematic Theology, on Spirit and Salvation. And I've been reading Jonathan Edwards on his spiritual writings, and really got into this week, the spiritual alphabet, the 3rd spiritual alphabet, translated by Mary E. Giles. I've read almost 200 pages of this. And I'm trying to finish this before the 4th and final volume comes out into this month. And as far as my diary, I'm on page 250 for the year 2022. So I have my bad days and good days. I never know how I'm going to feel each day. I get up and I pray and I pray and I pray. Read the Bible. Like we were reading this morning, he's on chapter 24, which it just sounds like what's in the news. It says here in chapter 24 of Matthew, verse 3, now he sat on the Mount of Olives. Disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming, the second coming of Christ, and of the end of the age? And Jesus answered and said to them, take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of war. See that you are not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginnings of sorrows. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And many will be offended and will betray one another and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will abound and the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Well, I thank you for your comments. Thank you for the new subscribers. Do pray that this is a Saturday. So hope you have a good new week coming up, a good reading week. Thank you for your support. You're in my prayers. And pray for Ukraine. Pray for the Russians. Pray for the world. And check out the 3rd spiritual alphabet by, forgive me for my pronunciation. As you all know, I'm terrible at that. I can pronounce Jonathan Edwards, so read his spiritual writings. I'm really enjoying this, been really blessed in reading him, and I look forward to reading his treatise in here on grace, internal and external work of grace, which I plan to read soon. And I've really been blessed. This is the 3rd volume. I'm almost finished reading this one, and look forward to reading the 4th and final volume of the life of Jesus Christ, which has taken me through the whole Gospels, the 4 Gospels there in the New Testament. So I'll sign off. Hope you're all doing well. And until next time, bye.